this episode is going to be a bit longer because we did not get to do our preseason episode, so we kind of had to address the rosters here. Going forward, everything should be between 15 to 20 minutes. All right, welcome, gentlemen. It's the Carpet Capital Football League Week 1 recap. This is Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kevin. So we're going to kick right off and get into it. No point in wasting time. I hope that everybody's happy with how their team's playing. If you're not, good luck on the waiver wire tonight.
I think at least we get to see both sides. You got the win, I got the L. So we can kind of see, get a little diversity here.
You get the yin and yang.
It's a long season.
So weekly recap, we're going to go ahead and look at what happened last week. Okay, so here we are with the recap. Let's go back to week 1 and see how everybody did. We'll start from the top, obviously, because it's my account. I'm going to be on top. So, I pulled it off against Charlie. It came down to Josh Allen. He made it very close, especially with Aaron Jones and Austin Eckler putting up incredible weeks. Austin Eckler way over projected. Aaron Jones almost 11 points over projected. T. Higgins, though, with the goose egg, kind of nasty. The Bengals looked kind of rough, I got to be honest.
There's a few of these big offenses, like the Bills too, especially. You see obviously with Josh Allen putting up 5. Like you look at like Bills, Bengals, some of these like top firing offenses that didn't get it done week 1. I wouldn't trigger any sort of worriness yet on any of those offenses. They're going to be fine. Yeah. So Charlie's first several players are honestly looking solid to me.
I agree. The only concern that I see on his roster is Dalton Schultz, for one, on Houston. You got a rookie quarterback. How many targets is a tight end going to get? Especially one that's how old is he now? 27?
Yeah, he's getting up there. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah. I can check that.
Yeah.
27, you're right. Yeah.
So 27, he's getting up there in age, rookie quarterback. And, obviously, he only got 2.4 points. So that's a concern. And then James Conner, he's a consistent producer, but he's slightly injury prone. Beyond that,
offense as well.
That offense, yes. The only shining light there is that the Cardinals are going to be very bad. And until Kyler Murray's fully healthy, they're going to be running the ball a lot. So he'll get touches. I love the Brandon Ayuk pickup, except he dropped a bomb on Charlie's bench. So you hate to see that. Everything else, though, is fine. Russell Wilson's still a bit of a question mark, but he played good against Vegas. Tyler Conklin, I don't think is going to have any value anymore, especially with Aaron Rodgers gone. And then everybody else is just, mix-in players. As for my roster, I'm fairly happy with it. Obviously we got the dub. We scored the most points. A little bit concerned about Mike Williams, potentially an injury there. And then maybe who's going to carry the workload with Raheem Mostert, because he's kind of touchdown dependent. He doesn't get a lot of touches. Similar thing with Tyler Algier with how good Bijan played in week 1. And you guys will see in the intro, there's a couple of plays in there. It's shocking. Jacoby Myers.
Dude, he looked phenomenal.
Oh yeah. I think
Algier also looked incredible though. And I think that there's their run scheme on the Falcons offense is so good that I think they can you could easily start Algier and get away with it as a double flex, a second flex spot. Because I think that there's enough touches. Offense just can operate at a high level. I think they're gonna have one of the best rushing offenses in the league, honestly.
I completely
hot take week 1, but they looked really good running the ball. No, it worked. They're not gonna stop.
The running backs that they have in their backfield completely fit the scheme fit that they're going with.
Absolutely.
And you have Cordero Patterson, who's kind of the Joker wild card factor. He can play 10 positions on the field. So yeah, I'm not super concerned with Algier. Obviously, there's some question marks at the end of the roster, specifically Alec Pierce and Michael Gallup. Those guys might be hitting the waiver wire, but we'll see. I think it was worth taking a shot on them in the draft and kind of just seeing what ended up happening with them. But also that Cowboys game wasn't really a fair evaluation. I don't think that game was so bad. The defense scored multiple touchdowns. They didn't throw the ball. Yeah,
that was fair for Michael Gallup.
I still don't know, because even in that game, you saw Brandon Cooks took over the wide receiver 2 position. So it means anytime that Dallas is going 2 wide receivers, more than likely Michael Gallup won't even be out there to catch a pass. So it'll be
yeah.
Moving forward, Eli and Wyatt, big matchup here, really did come down to the wire. Obviously, Eli snuck a win, 93.6 to 85.2, and Eli dropped 2 goose eggs on the team. DeAndre Swift with a 1.3 and Daniel Jones with a 0.46. Not what you want to see at a 2 starting positions.
Yeah, I think the Daniel Jones they looked really bad, man. I understand maybe the Cowboy defense is just like really good, but who's his backup? Can you scroll down for me? Does he have another QB? Oh,
Brock
sweet
Purdy.
Jesus. Well, I mean, he can run out with Brock Purdy. He did fine. That
Yeah,
offense is good.
and that's the thing.
But
It's like if Brock Purdy can check down to people like Brandon Ayuk and
and yeah, he'll be able to let them make the plays for you.
exactly.
That's all you have to do on that offense. Daniel Jones looked really bad, but the DeAndre Swift thing is kind of scary to me. Kenneth Gainwell is kind of injured right now, so maybe that leaves some room open for him. But I guess maybe on a new team they didn't trust him week one.
I do
That or just maybe he's just bad. I don't
I
know.
I think that because of the trade, he didn't have a full like off season to get in touch with the Eagles offense. And they
Yeah.
already had a pretty good rushing game with Miles Sanders, and Kenneth Gainwell was showing like a lot of promise last year. So I don't think it's a
Hmm.
concern week one. I think if by week 4 he's not getting those consistent like at least 12 to 15 touches a game, then that's where you start to look at like, okay, what do I do here?
Yeah, it's just a crowded backfield as well. You know, they got Rashad Penny that they didn't even use this week, so it was
Exactly.
really only Kenneth Gainwell, and they struggled offensively. So maybe it was just trying to figure out, get like Jalen Hurts going against the tough Patriots defense,
Yeah,
and just kind of just play it safe, do what you're normally used to with Kenneth Gainwell. I don't know. There's a few different ways you can approach that, but I think you hold Swift for now with low expectations.
absolutely. Cam
But
Akers, he's a consistent bottom barrel running back. I've called it multiple times. Everybody, around has called it. Whoever drafted him last year dealt with it. He does not get enough touches. The Rams are an air raid offense. Even with Cooper Kupp gone, they throw the ball like 52 times a game.
mm,
Doesn't get the touches, and the Rams have somewhat of a depleted offensive line with what was the guy's name who retired after the Super Bowl?
the massive guy,
Yeah.
yeah, I can't remember his name. Whitworth, maybe? Is it Whitworth?
Whitworth. It was Whitworth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Whitworth retiring, Cam Akers, like a depleted offensive line. You also have Kyron Williams, who had a great game on Sunday. So we'll see how that
They
turns
split
out.
shares. Yeah.
But obviously, we'll address the elephant in the room. Tyreek Hill, 44 and a half points. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's the only reason that Eli won this game. Oh, almost half his points total.
Yeah, he has 93. Yeah. That's what you get though with some of these first round guys though. Like if they come out to play, they're gonna have weeks like this. Like Jamar could do this easily. There are plenty of these guys that can do that.
Oh,
It
yeah.
just so happened to be Tyreek week one. And it
Yeah.
was a great matchup too. That both those offenses looked really, really strong for the Chargers and Miami. So it was a shootout game. It was just a great game script for Tyreek, and it just worked out in Eli's favor this time. Unfortunate for Wyatt.
Absolutely. And it really stinks seeing Jamar Chase only produce around 9 points. It's not really what you want to see, especially out of a guy like that. But I mean, that his value is going to be stable throughout the rest of the year because he's not going to have too many games like that. I mean, he might not even
Yeah,
have less points than that for the rest of the year.
that could be his worst game of the season for sure.
And I think Wyatt, although he had a bad week, Jalen Hurts didn't perform well. I mean, Damian Pierce, not that great. DJ Moore, I don't really like DJ Moore, mainly because I think Justin Fields is trash, but he had high upside on Carolina and they had a bad quarterback. So if he's
Yeah,
the number one guy, he could see a lot of targets at least. The rest of
yeah.
the
I think that.
go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna cut in and talk about Pierce
Yeah,
and
yeah.
more kind of in contrast. It's just like two really talented players and two really bad offenses. Maybe the Bears can turn around. I have higher hopes for them than Houston, but I'm like really scared. I was really off on Pierce this year. I talked about it preseason. He's going to get a lot of volume. He's a really talented player, but their offense is absolutely pathetic.
I completely
Like
agree.
you don't really have the touchdown upside. And DJ Moore, it's like maybe you can get there, but Justin Fields looks really bad. So like I have worries for him. He's never been a great passer,
Yeah.
but those could be two pretty big holes for Wyatt. But
The
we'll
other
see how
thing
that
I
turns
see
out.
I mean, wide receiver other than Jamar Chase, he is struggling. He does have Terry McLaurin and Jahan Dotson, which are, high talent players, speed, both of them, and incredible athleticism. But I don't think Sam Howell's the guy. And
And you can only rely on one of those guys. You can't be starting both of them. Or
exactly,
at least I wouldn't be.
no, you
So
can't. Um,
yeah, you kind of taking a shot on one or the other in each week,
the
hoping
rest
for
of
the
this
best.
roster is a lot of question marks. Gabe Davis, Devin Singletary, Adam Thielen, Gerald Everett, Bryce Young. I mean, nobody scored more than 5.5 points. It's depth wise, White
Yeah,
is looking for something.
it's interesting that he's rostering both the Houston running backs. I'm a
And
little blown by that. I guess I get it as like maybe a handcuff, but I wouldn't really want to handcuff on the Houston offense.
yeah,
And
and
Adam Thielen's like 100 years old.
yes, and both Washington wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get to play. I understand it for security reasons, but I feel like you
Got
can
to diversify your assets in
yeah, you
here.
can get more value having other depth pieces on there. Either way, though, we can move forward onto the third matchup of the week. We have Paul Allen, otherwise known as Alamine, and she Saquon My Harris, which is Henry's new name. Um, so obviously, Al had a stinker of a week. Lamar Jackson 4.5 points. Deontay Johnson 7.8 points, and he's injured. We
Yeah,
don't.
he's out. He's gonna be out for about 6 weeks. They haven't confirmed anything yet, but it's not like a complete tear, but it's like gonna be like a partially torn hamstring. So he's
Yeah,
gonna be out for an extensive amount of time.
that's tough.
Not a season ender though, at least not a season ender. So
I guess you can call that a silver lining. And then you have
yeah,
George Kittle, who's incredible, but kind of banged up at the moment, and he might not be seeing full game action until like week 3, week 4. And then you have
he's
Rashad.
boomer bust anyways. He'll give you these games. That's like part of his. That's like in his description. He's gonna give you games like this, but he could also drop 30 for you.
That's
That's
true.
what he does.
Rashad White in a depleted Buccaneers offense. It seems like Baker Mayfield is kind of the guy, and it doesn't seem like they're going to be rushing it a lot because their defense is starting to deplete. They're getting a bit older there. They do have some young pieces, specifically at safety and corner, but you got to wonder if they're going to be behind in most games. They're not really going to have the opportunity to get a lot of rushing yards. So Rashad White is a bit of a question mark here.
Yeah, I also don't think he looked very good. Just like a kind of watching him play, just didn't look like he was very good. I didn't think he was all that good last year. The Buccaneers had the fewest rush yards of any team last season with Leonard Fournette and Rashad White. Now White's the main guy, and maybe he can get it done, but I've been unimpressed by him through his career so far.
No, I have to. I had both Leonard Fournette and Rashad White, and it was a coin flip on who I was starting that week.
Yeah,
It worked out
he's a
so.
good pass catcher, so maybe there's some pass catching value there. So for his hopes, maybe it'll work out. But
The rest of Al's team, depth wise, I mean, it is better than some that we've looked at so far, but AJ Dillon, he's going to get more touches this coming week with Aaron Jones probably not playing because of injury.
mm-hmm.
I don't like Rondale Moore purely because Arizona sucks. Elijah Moore, similar thing. I don't think Cleveland's going to be that good, but he did score higher than projected, so that might be something to look at. Elijah
He
Mitchell.
was their clear number two. He was their clear number two.
Yeah.
So there's hope there for sure.
Elijah Mitchell, I mean, we'll see, but the 49ers had a dominant game and he didn't touch the ball besides twice. I think he got 2 touches.
Yeah, he's a pure handcuff. I mean, that's what you get with Christian McCaffrey. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to score a lot of points being his backup.
Yeah. Matt Stafford, I think it's a fine backup. He looked a lot better in the game against Seattle, but again, Seattle doesn't have a great defense. So we'll see if when he's really tested. Greg Dulcich could be a sneaky late good pick if the Broncos are actually good this year, but we'll see how that turns out.
He is hurt now as well. He's out for a few weeks with a hamstring injury.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
As for Henry's team, he's rostering the rapist, so minus 5 points immediately. I do like the running back duo. I don't really think that Najee Harris is as good as people are saying.
I agree.
I'm kind of low on him, but he does have Alvin Kamara coming back after week 3, so that's an easy slot back in over Najee Harris as long as he can get through these 3 weeks, and it worked out.
Mm-hmm.
As for receiving options, I like Keenan Allen. He's pretty consistent. Again, injury prone a bit, and he's getting up there in age. CeeDee Lamb, great young talent on a fiery Dallas offense, but if their defense is going to be playing that great, he might not see the field that often.
Yeah, I don't think most of the games will be like that. I think CeeDee's going to be. I think this is a really really strong wide receiver duo between Keenan and CeeDee.
I agree.
I really like both those picks.
And with Michael Pittman running flex, I mean, You've got options.
Yeah, true. And honestly, I mean, Anthony Richardson, like, I feel like everyone was out on Pittman because of last year.
Yeah,
Like, the talent was there last year, the talent's there this year. If Anthony Richardson is like decent, like we hope he is going to be, like he was drafted to be, then like Michael Pittman could have a very good season. And I think week one shows that, obviously.
absolutely. The only question mark is Anthony Richardson is slightly injured. I mean, he sustained it at the very end of
Yeah.
the game. We don't know the extent of it to this point,
It's
but
a minor. He's going to be fine. I think he was saying it was like he's probably going to play week two. He was probable for week two,
okay.
from what I've read.
Okay.
From what I've read,
Good to know.
but anything worse than a week, I don't think it's going to be a long term issue for him.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. The worst thing that you would want is, and it happens so often, rookie quarterbacks sustain a season ending injury like
Mm-hmm.
halfway through the year.
Kind of just destroy their career. He needs to start. Him and Josh Allen both need to start sliding a little bit more. They're kind
Yeah.
of just taking hits that aren't necessary. You're going to
Yeah.
get yourself hurt.
We'll get to Josh
Um,
Allen, but some of the dives he
yeah,
was doing on Monday Night Football, you're asking.
dude. There was the one where it was like a third and long, and he was like 6 yards shy of the first down, and he like tried to get an extra yard out of it. Like, what are you doing? Like, you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah.
He like jumped up into two defenders.
Yeah.
It's really, really foolish.
Um,
But
as
I
for the
don't
rest
know.
of the roster
Both
though,
those guys.
I like his depth in some areas. I mean, Nico Collins, obviously Houston defense is bad, but we
He
said
looks solid though.
yeah, we said we liked Alvin Kamara. Romeo Dubs, if Jordan Love really is that guy, Romeo Dubs could have high upside. Rashad Penny, similar thing with Kenneth Gainwell being injured. He could be good for a few weeks if DeAndre Swift isn't all that. Um, Devon Kane is a total flyer, and Dawson Knox is, I don't think he's really that good. The Bills don't use their tight ends nearly enough for him
Yeah, Dobbs too. Christian Watson was out this week. I'm not sure how that's going to affect him, but it's just something to monitor and kind of see if Dobbs remains the number one. I doubt he's going to be the number one. He obviously was this week, but maybe Watson's like the explosive play guy and Dobbs is the more consistent. But we'll just have to see how he factors into that once he's playing next week.
Absolutely. And we'll have to see how Jordan Love and Green Bay play against an actual defense because we know that the Bears have a bad defense and we know that they beat up on the Bears every game. So this is nothing new.
Yeah. And now we know the Bears are a good matchup going forward because clearly the Packers did not struggle against them.
No.
So it'll be hyped to see that your team with your best players is playing the Bears one week. Your players are going to go off.
Oh, yeah. I mean, potentially the same thing if you're playing the Giants. The Giants looked like shit.
True. They looked really bad. There were some special teams touchdowns. Like they had a pick six, right? I didn't even watch the full game, honestly. That was one of the games I didn't watch.
The Giants lost.
It was just so bad. What'd you say? Your mic cut out.
The Giants lost 40-0.
I know. It was one of the worst
So
games
bad.
I've ever seen. I turned it off at half. I didn't watch any more of it, but all the Pollard touchdowns, yeah.
Moving on to the fourth matchup, we have Alex versus Noah. Noah pulled this one out pretty handedly, 26-point deficit. Obviously, you know why. Aaron Rodgers died 3 snaps into the game on Monday night. And then beyond that, you've got Kadarius Toney, who had a case of the drops, couldn't catch anything, Butterfingers. And then Deion Jackson.
He was horrible.
Deion Jackson, who got nothing on the ground. So yeah, it's hard to win when your team does that. But beyond that, Noah's team did play pretty well. I mean, Trevor Lawrence scored about projected. Christian McCaffrey went off. Jahmyr Gibbs a little bit under, but they were playing Kansas City, and Kansas City does have a good D-line. So it's not.
And I know Dan Campbell talked about working Jahmyr Gibbs in slowly, just new rookie guy. He looked really good.
Yes.
I was impressed. I know. I'm sure all of us had extra eyes on him. He looked really solid.
Yeah. All of us.
Boy, baby. He's got to represent.
Got to. I don't think the 8 points is anything to worry about. I think he still has extremely high upside for the rest of the season. I like DK Metcalf, Marquise Brown again, Arizona. We hate those players. They stink. Cole Kmet on Chicago could be good. He's a talented tight end, but with Justin Fields throwing the ball, there's a bit of a question mark there on how accurate those passes are actually going to be.
He had more than DJ Moore though, so that's something to be happy about.
Absolutely.
Maybe Fields also had him last year, so it could just be a trust thing. But that's definitely helpful for his side.
The other thing to note is Sky Moore, but he will not be playing in the flex for Noah once Christian Watson is back and healthy, and then eventually, ideally, Jamison Williams after 6 games. He will have plenty of options to throw in there at flex and replace Marquise Brown. I really like the Brian Robinson pick. I got him last year in free agency after the draft when he was recovering from being shot in the leg twice. I think he's a really good runner, and I think the Washington Redskins or what are they now? The football team?
Commanders.
Commanders? Whatever.
Commanders.
Fuck whatever. I think the Commanders are going to be really bad, and they're going to run the ball a lot. So I like Brian Robinson's upside.
He looked good too. He
Depth on
looked
both
strong.
are a bit sparse. Besides the 2 receivers we mentioned from Noah, I mean, there's not a lot to go around. Maybe you got something in Zach Charbonnet, but he didn't do much against the Rams. So
It was week 1 as a rookie. I mean, I like Charbonnet as a bench piece, especially if Kenneth Walker gets hurt. He's going to be really solid.
yeah.
He was good in college. We just got to kind of hold on to him for a little bit and see if he gets worked in or not.
The only big issue we need to talk about is what is Alex going to do at wide receiver? And I mean, particularly quarterback. He's not rostering a backup at the moment. Aaron Rodgers is done for the season. There's not a lot of good options out in free agency unless you want to target Jordan Love or Mac Jones. And I assume there's going to be a couple of guys going for quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see tomorrow morning who actually gets who. Beyond that,
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have very many flex options here, like solid flex options. Not until Jonathan Taylor's back, which is at least a few weeks. And
yeah.
I mean, you just can't start Kadarius Toney or Deion Jackson and like being aware of just how bad those players are.
Yeah,
Kadarius is terrible.
Now there's question marks at Garrett Wilson too. With Aaron Rodgers down and your 2 quarterback options being Zach Wilson and Mike White, he is wide receiver 1 at least, and especially with Corey Davis suddenly retiring in the offseason, he is by far and away their number 1 receiver. But how many?
Down Lazard, who's solid, but yeah, he's clearly. I mean, he's clearly the number 1. You have to start Garrett Wilson. Like you drafted him in the 2nd round. Like you don't really have an option to work around it. Unfortunately, that's kind of. I have Garrett Wilson in another league. It's kind of just a pill you have to swallow and just hope for the best with Zach Wilson.
That's all I'm saying is that it's a question mark. It's probably going to be something.
Oh yeah. It stinks. And he had a stack. Like that was a pretty exciting stack. Aaron Rodgers, Garrett Wilson, and now it's just ruined, which stinks. It sucks when you see your stack go down.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I'm happy with the Kirk to Hawk stack. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Stacks are fun. It does stink that his goes down week 1 before they even completed a pass.
Oh, it's tough. 5th matchup of the week, we have Tal and Sam. This matchup was, I mean, one of the higher scoring ones. It was me and Charlie, and then this one, Tal almost beat me out for highest score of the week, but Tal won pretty comfortably towards the end, especially once Stephon Diggs hit the field. I mean, 26 points, and Tua Tagovailoa with 31. It's pretty hard to lose, especially, I mean, Calvin Ridley dropping 24 as well. Like those 3 players right there are over 90 of his points.
That was enough to do this week. This week was really bad. You get a couple of those guys and pretty much win everywhere.
Yeah, even with Dallas Goedert dropping the goose egg.
Yeah.
In terms of long-term play, though, I think that Cal has a good roster. I'm unsure about Jamal Williams, particularly because, I mean, whenever and I'm blanking on his name now, Alvin Kamara comes.
Alvin Kamara, yeah.
When he comes back, he's definitely going to be the workload. Your only hope there is Jamal Williams becomes a touchdown merchant again, like he was in Detroit. You do have Dalvin Cook, and the Jets are probably going to run the ball a lot, but they are splitting shares between Breece Hall and Cook. So,
yeah, he got a ton of volume week 1. I mean, obviously, Breece Hall is coming back from the knee thing. So I think as the year goes on, Dalvin's just usage is just going to go slightly down throughout the year. It's just a question mark of how long you're actually going to have him. And maybe he can service you for, half the season, hopefully. But I imagine by week 10, Breece Hall is going to be in full force of that backfield.
Yeah.
Pending injuries, of course. Re-injury of the knee is always a possibility. But
you're right. But, yeah, I agree. Definitely something to think about. I think Josh Jacobs, obviously good. Stephon Diggs, Calvin Ridley, phenomenal picks. Michael Thomas, a bit of a question mark, but he is the Saints' number 1 guy. Maybe Chris Olave takes over that role this year, but we'll see. And then we have to address it. Tal went big duo quarterback in the draft. Justin Herbert as well, just riding the bench at this moment.
Yeah.
Gotta think that if Alex doesn't get the quarterback he wants on the waiver wire, he might be reaching out to Tal to try and maybe move Jettas.
I mean, I'm not sure. This is obviously a power play by Tal here, having Tua and Justin Herbert. I'm sure he got Tua pretty late, and he also started him over Justin Herbert, which is bold, and it worked out. But
Well,
having Herbert on the bench is definitely a very valuable trade piece. Who knows when? I'm sure Alex is probably going to be knocking on his door. Is my guess. I'm not sure what Alex has planned, but I'm not going to put any speculation on trade talks that I'm not involved in, so I won't comment on it. But I think it should be some interesting league news. Probably be the biggest first trade of the year.
yeah, I think it will be. As for depth, I mean, you know, you've got Khalil Herbert, Alan Lazard, his value's gone way down now. Dalton Kincaid, again, a Buffalo tight end. I don't think he's going to be very good. And then, I mean, you've got John Mechie, but he's on the worst offense in the league. And then Marvin Jones, who is wide receiver.
Bold.
He's wide receiver 2 at the moment, and he'll be wide receiver 3 or 4 when Jameson Williams gets back.
Yeah, is he even two? Josh Reynolds was honestly two. Marvin Jones was not even like I didn't even see him play. I don't know where he got the 0.8 from. He must have caught a pass or something, but
Yeah, caught a pass for -2 yards.
yeah, it was not very promising.
And then moving over to Sam, I mean, he had some big wide swings in the draft. You take Bijan at 4, and it worked out for him this week, and I think it's going to continue to work out for him this season. Bijan looked incredible. I'll give that one to Sam. I was not high on him, but I will remain solid in the fact that I don't think Kyle Pitts with Desmond Ridder is going to be a fantasy hold.
I agree with you entirely. I think that, and we learned this week that Arthur Smith wants to run the ball. And you'll see it with Bennett's team next. Like Drake London didn't score. Like they don't pass the ball because they don't need to. Bijan was the leading target receiver and the leading reception. And it's just like it's unnecessary to kind of throw the ball too much when you're able to just win games by running. But you know maybe they'll find themselves down in games where they'll have to throw. But they definitely don't trust Ritter enough to be throwing the ball a lot. And it's just tough to feed Bijan and Pitts too in the same offense.
Absolutely.
Like for both of them to go off, your chances just go down.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But beyond that, I mean, you know, Joe Mixon, I think he's old, but he's going to be consistent. Jalen Waddle, extremely high upside. Him and Tyreek Hill are phenomenal. Chris Godwin, a bit of a question mark because, you know, Tom Brady retires, had to represent the guy. First year without him, you know how we had to do it. But Baker Mayfield.
Baker looked good.
Yeah.
He looked good. Mike Evans did well. Chris Godwin did fine. I mean, 10's not bad, not great, but they won the game. I think Baker could be kind of a sleeper. We'll see. I'm not gonna say too much yet. Minnesota's pretty bad defensive team, so. But I mean, for week 1, Baker did not look like there were quarterbacks that looked a lot worse than Baker. I'll say that.
Oh, yeah. And he was laying his body out for it. Every single yard, that man was throwing it to the wind. So I think
dude, he's got a lot of heart. He always has. He really wants to win. Yeah. Which is good.
George Pickens and Pacheco. I mean, Pacheco is going to catch a lot of passes, but he played the Detroit Lions. So I don't know if 9.4 points is going to be a consistent thing. You've got Jerick McKinnon in there, who is definitely their running back too, but he could steal some time from him. Last year, Kansas City was heavy alternating between the two, so we'll see who gets the workhorse share. I don't like George Pickens, though. I think Kenny Kitten Mittens Pickens
he sucks.
Yeah.
But Deontay is now down, so George Pickens is going to be the clear guy there. And Freiermuth might be slightly injured. So I think Pickens for at least a few weeks. If Kenny Pickett is at all decent, which he looked awful this week,
yeah.
If he's at all decent, I think Pickens could be serviceable for some time at least.
I would tend to agree with you. And then, I mean, moving into depth for Sam's team, he's got a good bit of it. You got Jordan Addison, who's a stud receiver. You can easily slot him in. I think he's going to be a consistent producer, especially if week 1 is anything to.
Yeah, he looked great. He looked great.
You've got Ezekiel Elliott, who, I mean, is definitely running back 2 to Ramondre Stevenson, but you're kind of hoping on him also being a touchdown merchant and stealing one here or there. Um, Darnell Mooney, he caught a lot of passes, but we'll see if that remains consistent throughout the rest of the
Yeah, he,
season.
he he caught a pretty long touchdown to kind of give him a good day. I think it was like a 30-yard touchdown, so that's a 9-point play right there, 10-point play. That'll give you a good day.
Yeah. Tyler Boyd, we'll see. He's wide receiver 3, maybe dropping to 4. We'll see if his play goes up. But obviously, I mean, I think it's fine to hold on to him until you know how Cincinnati's offense is going to perform. Similar thing with Kenneth Gainwell. He's slightly banged up now, but if DeAndre Swift isn't the guy, Kenneth Gainwell certainly will be.
hmm I think he will be. Or that I mean, we talked about it earlier with Swift. Maybe it was just a week one, go with the guy that knows the offense better. That's possible that it was, but just from week one analysis, Kenneth Gainwell should have a strong season.
Yeah.
But I mean, things change, obviously. I think Swift's talented. Gainwell, I don't think he's as talented as Swift from like a pure just like movement standpoint, but they obviously trust Gainwell, so maybe there's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, you have to hope. But overall, I think both teams look pretty good. No real major concerns to worry about. Um, Moving into the last matchup, we got you versus Bennett.
Let's cover Bennett's team. We'll just do my team last. We'll do yours on the front, mine on the back.
Okay, that's fine. Talking about Bennett's team, I mean, he's stacked. Travis Kelce is injured, but Patrick Mahomes showed out. Kenneth Walker, I think, is going to be a consistent play. You win against the Rams and Aaron Donald, so it's understandable that a running back isn't going to produce as much. We do have
That
to
offense really struggled too. They didn't really get the ball moving. There wasn't many touchdown opportunities this week, so kind of just a down week when you can't get in the end zone.
definitely. I mean, we love Chris Olave. Drake London is a big question mark because Atlanta might not be running the ball much. Sam Laporta could be a stream option for tight end, but I think Travis Kelce is probably going to be back for week 2, and he's definitely going to slot in there. Zay Flowers, a good sneaky pickup in the late rounds of the draft because he dropped 17.7 points.
No Mark Andrews though, so that was a very good matchup for him this week.
That's true. Jerick McKinnon, we mentioned it with Pacheco. He is probably going to be doing a split share with him for yards. And this week he did not get the big share. So that's going to be something to watch out for looking forward. And now we can address the elephant in the room. J.K. Dobbins down with a season-ending injury.
Yeah, that sucks.
Pretty brutal.
And he doesn't really have a ton of running back depth, in my opinion. I think he's got some receivers there on the bench to help with the flex, but it's like you're kind of running out there with Jerick McKinnon.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe he can go to the waivers or something, but now you're going to be rostering Mahomes, McKinnon, and Kelce. Like maybe there's enough to go around there, but I feel like Kelce and Mahomes is kind of enough, with one offense.
Yeah.
And McKinnon had 2 points when Kelce didn't even play, so it's a little scary there.
Yeah.
If that's what you're going to go with.
Definitely something to watch out for. The other thing you have to think about is if he's streaming, I mean, not streaming, if he's starting all 3 of them, whenever they have their bye week, that's 3 of your starters down.
True. Yeah. And to be fair, Judy was out this week for him.
Yeah.
But obviously someone's got to replace Dobbins. So I know Judy would have been a second flex.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dobbins going down really, really hurts. But that's kind of how it goes, You got to find guys on the waivers to replace these guys.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba, if the Seahawks can't get it together, I don't know what value he's going to have, but obviously hold on to him. That was just one game and they're playing the Rams, so there's no real indicators here for season long. But I mean, it's something to watch out for. You've got Chris Olave and Jerry Jeudy because I guess Zay Flowers too, but you've got a lot of question marks at receiver because Drake London with the Atlanta offense, Jerry Jeudy, old and injured, Jackson Smith and Jigba, rookie, and Geno might not be that guy anymore. And then you have Jalen Hyatt on the Giants, and the Giants looked atrocious. So I don't even know if he's going to be on Sam's team come tomorrow morning. I mean, not Sam's team, sorry.
Bennett's team, yeah. Yeah, he's definitely battling the injury bug. I mean, I am too. It just kind of stinks. You kind of have to plug and play people as you go.
Yeah.
Until you get your workhorses back. Obviously, I mean, Judy should be back soon. Kelce should be back, hopefully even sooner. This was just kind of an unfortunate week for him. He still won the game though. So, I mean, you kind of just nod your head and go forward and hope that Kelsey's back next week as his main point creator, especially
Yeah,
with Mahomes and that stack. I think Mahomes will look a lot better too.
I agree. I agree. All right, yeah. Moving on to your team. Obviously, Joe Burrow put up a stinker this week. That's not going to happen regularly. I think he'll get the hang of it and he'll come around. Not really a concern, I would say, for you.
Yeah, they just looked bad. I mean, we talked about it with Jamar and T. I don't know what they were doing this week. They had a bad week one last year to kind of just take the L and go forward with Burrow there.
Yeah. Into your running backs, I mean, I like James Cook. He's definitely the check down guy. He's going to get probably 5 targets a game around that, just in terms of catching. So you can count on probably 5 points here and there just from that, not even the yards he gets or the rushing yards. Same thing with Samaje Perine. He had a pretty good showing. I mean, he outperformed his projection by 0.3, but I mean, Vegas has a decent defense, so we'll see how that goes moving forward. Obviously, your round one pick, Amon Ra, he's the guy. He's definitely.
Cooper Cup was my round one pick.
Oh, sorry. Amon Ra was your
I'm already down my biggest weapon. Amon Ra was round two, yeah, and he obviously lit it up with as expected. He should be a solid asset all season.
Yeah, and I mean Tyler Lockett, I think he's going to be fine, but Seattle's just got to get it together. I mean, Geno
Yeah,
Smith not very good.
Geno did not look good at all. This week he just looked lost against the Rams, and like you said, maybe like last year was a fluke, which is really horrifying because I am not totally bought into Geno. I don't think there's enough history there to make me like comfortable there. So when I see Tyler Lockett go out there and score 3 in week one, it's like genuinely concerning to me.
Yeah,
I'm not like super scared yet, but there's some warning sirens going off for sure with anyone on the Seattle offense.
a little bit. And then obviously, Isaiah Likely is just a placeholder till Mark Andrews is healthy, but Brees Hall in your flex and Mike Evans in the other flex spot, I think those are both great picks. I think as Brees Hall gets healthier, he's going to get more touches, and we talked about it with Dalvin Cook. I think Brees Hall is the younger guy. He's definitely the more explosive guy at this point in both of their.
I mean, he looked incredible.
Yeah,
he had 2 rushes for like 110 yards yesterday. His first 2 are just insane. 83-yard run. That could be the longest run all season.
it
Definitely
might be
possible. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but that was electric. He looked really good. Just didn't get a ton of carries, unfortunately, he's coming back from the injury still.
Yeah. And then Mike Evans, obviously, like we talked about it with Chris Godwin. Baker Mayfield could be the guy. Mike Evans saw a ton of targets. Did he catch 2 touchdowns or just one?
He caught one.
One, yeah.
But he was pretty clearly the wide receiver one for week one.
Oh, yeah.
He seemed like he was much more trusted than Godwin was from Baker.
Yeah.
He is the veteran guy, so that's typically what happens with a new quarterback. They're going to rely on the older, more experienced guy.
Yep.
And that was obviously Mike Evans week one, so seems like a good pick so far, especially in the second flex where I slotted him.
And
that's where I drafted to have him, and it's worked out so far. So
yeah. And I mean, I think the plan's working great. As long as he stays healthy, I think that's a great flex option for you, or sub in if Tyler Lockett's not looking too good and Cooper Kupp isn't recovered yet.
Yeah.
For depth, I mean, I like what you have going, especially because, I mean, you have 2 starters in depth right now in Cooper Kupp and Mark Andrews, who are both, battling injuries. And then, Geno Smith, if he gets it together, it's a great quarterback to have. If he has another season like he did last year, that's a phenomenal guy to hold on to. But clearly Joe Burrow is going to be your number 1 guy.
Yeah.
Jaylen Warren is obviously a flyer. You're counting on Najee to get injured. Jaylen Warren just doesn't see enough.
I'm actually counting on the just implosion of Najee in general, not even necessarily an injury. I just, like we talked about him earlier, I don't think he's very good.
No,
so I kind of took Jaylen Warren in a couple drafts thinking that like he might just take the job eventually. He's not going to be good for like 8 weeks, but if he starts to become like the guy, I kind of just took him for like the long time and just sort of see what I can get with him.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a long-term investment for this season, but it could turn out to have good returns for you come down the end.
We'll see. I mean, it definitely is a flyer, though. You're not wrong. And if Najee does get hurt, obviously there's a lot of upside there.
Yeah. As for Paris Campbell, I mean, great talent on the guy, but the Giants just looked awful. Daniel Jones looked like 2021,
Mhm.
2020 Daniel Jones, throwing the ball to the defense, handing the ball to the defense.
Mhm.
He couldn't give it away quick enough.
Yeah, I mean, that was awful. I don't know. I'm not gonna, do anything with Paris yet and kind of just see. Maybe it was just a fluke for the Giants week one. And I think that's kind of how you have to look at all the Giants players right now. Even
Yeah.
Saquon had a stinker. You just kind of write it off to week one jitters, and maybe the Dallas defense is that good.
Yeah.
I think you just can't panic on any of the Giants guys yet. But like I've said, warning sirens going off for sure with any of those guys.
Oh yeah. Definitely something to be concerned about, but like you said, I mean, there's no reason to go ahead and drop them right now. It's week one,
Yeah,
like we said.
sure.
Moving forward, I'm going up against Sam this week. We'll go ahead and dive in just to take a quick glance at each of the matchups.
This should be a good matchup, though. I think these were two of the better teams, just looking at rosters top to bottom, in my opinion. There's the explosive players, guys that maybe had some down weeks last week. Most players did have a down week last week, anyways. But I'm curious how Sam's going to sort of treat Jordan Addison this week as he goes forward. Is he going to slot him in there? Is he going to use Zeke, or is he going to get any other pickups from the waivers? Um, and then on your side of the ball, obviously the stack with Cousins and Hawkinson. I don't think Hawkinson had a great week one, but clearly that's a
11.8
high-powered offense.
points.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. And if he gets in the end zone, it's a completely different game, obviously.
Absolutely. I mean,
So, and it's a high-powered offense. Like they pass the ball a ton. So I think
yeah,
Hawkinson can be great. And then obviously Devontae Smith struggled a little bit. He looked better than AJ Brown though this past week. It was like he was getting more targets. And did he catch a touchdown as well?
he did. He did.
Yeah. So that's I'm not going to overlook that. I'm not going to like overanalyze that, week one, like I've said in
Yeah,
the
yeah.
past, but he definitely did look like he was sort of the number one option on a week one standpoint. And then of course, I see you got Algier slotted in there now. Could be a good matchup here. I like what I see.
I think it's going to be good too. And I fortunately, a lot of my players are playing some pretty weak defenses. Nick Chubb going against Pittsburgh with, I mean, obviously they have TJ Watt, but their rush defense week one was bad. Travis Etienne against Kansas City. They had a pretty good rush defense, but Minnesota had a horrible passing defense. So I think Devontae Smith can thrive. Similar thing with Mike Williams and TJ Hawkinson. And then as for Sam, he's got some good matchups on defense as well, like playing teams like uh Chicago, Green Bay didn't have a phenomenal pass defense first week. And then obviously Cleveland and Jacksonville. So there's definitely room for some boom on this roster.
Cleveland looked good though. I mean,
They
they
did
might be really
overall.
strong. They destroyed Joe Burrow and company. So
Yeah,
maybe Cleveland's kind of a sleeper defense.
I'm glad we're not doing defenses though. The Cowboys defense knocking up
Oh,
40 points is fucking
yeah, no, it's terrible. It's a really nice change to get rid of defenses. It just kind
um
of like takes out the randomness of fantasy a little bit more.
yeah, absolutely. Next matchup we have Eli versus Al. This is definitely going to be an interesting one. Eli already has a pretty hefty advantage before, the week has even really started, 55% to 45%. Um, I mean, I think that Eli clearly has the stronger roster based on what we saw in week one, but Al definitely has some boom players. If Lamar Jackson has a great game against the Bengals, Derrick Henry's going up against the Chargers, who have a horrible rush defense. He could drop a bomb.
Yes,
Um,
and Kittle as well.
Kittle too.
Yeah, he's just a boomer bust tight end. He didn't have a good week one, but we know what he's capable of.
Yeah,
We saw it last year. Some just like multi touchdown games. You never know when that's going to come out of him. He's scary, but he can also go out there and just throw a stinker.
yeah.
So
The real question is, who does Al slot in for Deontay Johnson? I mean, do you go Rondell Moore? Do you go Elijah Moore? Do you go?
I don't know. It's kind of tough. I mean, you go Brandon Cooks up to the receiver, so
Yeah, yeah.
you have options. So you can use Dylan if you want.
You can use Elijah next
Based
ball.
on a matchup, I would say maybe Dylan because they're playing Atlanta, and I'm still not in Atlanta's rough defense. But I'm not sure. I think he doesn't have like any strong guys that are like sort of jumping off on the bench. And maybe he's got a waiver decision as well to make.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that will be addressed next week. We'll address the week one waiver claims and whatnot.
Hmm.
Next matchup, we have Wyatt versus Alex. This is going to be an extremely interesting matchup. We have to see what happens with the waivers to really know how good Alex's team is going to be. Obviously, we talked about it before. Aaron Rodgers is out of there. You have to start Garrett Wilson purely based on where you drafted him, and he still could have some upside because he's the wide receiver one. But
Hmm.
Pat Freiermuth banged up. I mean, at the moment, you don't have a tight end to slot in for him, and you don't have a quarterback. So you really need
Yeah.
to hit big in this waiver wire week. And Wyatt's team, I don't think, is going to have another stinker week. Jalen Hurts against the Vikings, Tony Pollard against the Jets.
That's a bad matchup though. The Jets
Yeah, the
defense
Jets
looks
do have a
really
great
tough.
defense, but I don't know. The Cowboys look strong. And the
Hmm.
Jets without a quarterback, if their defense is left on the field for too long, they might crumble.
True. It's fair.
And then you got
Well,
Jamar.
they were in week one with no quarterback the whole time.
Yeah, and the Bills played like shit too, and they still barely won.
Yeah, that's fair. This
Um,
is true.
you do have Jamar Chase going up against Baltimore. Baltimore has an extremely depleted secondary. I'm gonna give this as a free tip to anyone out there. If you're questioning who to start, and one of the guys, if it's a coin flip, really, and one of the guys is playing against Baltimore, start him because they lost Marlon Humphrey for the season before the season started, and they lost one of their rookie cornerbacks for like 8 weeks. They're down to their third string and fourth string playing cornerback 1 and 2 right now. So
Yeah,
uh,
you're talking about only for receivers too. Running backs
yeah,
are a
yeah,
different story.
absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, I agree there.
And then you've got DJ Moore, Cortland Sutton, some question marks there. But we'll really just have to see. This matchup is completely dependent on what Alex does in the waivers. So there's really nothing for us to
Yeah,
go on in terms of making a prediction.
I'm curious how many moves are going to be made tonight as well. I think this is going to be coming out. This pod will be out tomorrow at
Yeah.
the earliest, so everyone will know kind of. We don't know everything basically is what I'm getting at. We haven't seen the waivers. We're recording this Tuesday, so none of
Yes.
this information is available to us.
Um, Next matchup, we have Henry versus Tal. It's a dead 50-50, 115 to 117 at the moment. I mean, there's really no question marks on Tal's team. He's got a lot of high performers. You could maybe say Michael Thomas could be somewhat of a question mark with Jamal Williams, but going up against Carolina, their defense is so bad. I think that those guys are both going to put up decent points. And then with Henry's team, you do have some questions. I mean, Deshaun Watson looked good week one. Saquon is at least going up against Arizona, who has a bad defense. Najee, you and I both said we don't really like. We don't
Mm-hmm.
think he's that good.
Yeah.
The rest of his team should be pretty all right, though. Nico Collins is another bit of a question mark. So,
Yeah, this should be a good game too. I don't really have a ton to add here. Honestly, I mean, I feel like we've covered these guys. This should be a good matchup. I am honestly scared of Tal's roster. At least while
yeah,
Dalvin is still really solid. If Brees ends up maybe getting more of that job, he'll go down a little bit. But Dalvin for now should be fine, and this should be a good game to watch.
I agree. I think that's going to be a good matchup. I think the two best right now are me and Sam and Henry and Tal based on what the teams look like. Um, Moving into our fifth matchup, we have Noah versus you. And so this one is also pretty dead even 115 to 114. You guys both had good drafts. Your players performed well. You've caught the injury bug early, but your team is handling
I
it
didn't take,
okay.
I think it didn't take long to get the injury, but the only good for that is I have injury bug. I
Hold
worked
on.
on it last year.
Hold on. You cut
Um,
out that whole sentence. I couldn't hear anything.
I was saying I had a lot of experience with the injury bug last year. So I'm making some waiver moves. I have to and kind of work around these things, work out the tweaks, and hope for the best. But I mean I think if Christian Watson plays, Noah's got a pretty scary team across from me, especially with Chris McCaffrey. You just hate to see him slotted up against you. I think he's the scariest player in fantasy,
For
especially as a
sure.
running back. He's horrifying to play against.
Most
So
explosive.
he, maybe Brees is that. explosiveness, but he's going against Dallas. So I'm kind of it's really is
Oh, were we done addressing that one?
I'm good there.
Okay. Um, moving into the last matchup, we have Bennett versus Charlie. Currently, according to the projections, Charlie is significantly ahead, but that's because Bennett has J.K. Dobbins, who is
and no Kelsey in there yet.
Yeah, no Kelsey in there. So this could shift quite a bit. I think it is going to be a good matchup, especially if Kelsey is healthy and plays. The only question mark on Bennett's team is really what do you do at running back? Because you have Jerick McKinnon and J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, I'm curious how Bennett's going to handle this situation. He's got the injury bug, and honestly, Charlie kind of has the injury bug now too. Aaron Jones, I don't think is going to be playing this week.
No.
And I know Eckler has some sort of foot thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
He is Eckler, so he's probably going to play through it because he is just like an absolute man.
Yeah.
But it is something to monitor too with both of those guys, especially. But I don't think Aaron Jones is going to play. So Charlie's going to have to come up with something. He does have Brandon Ayuk on his bench, so he has a solid bench piece there.
Yeah. Charlie has some options to move around with. Bennett, really not many options. I mean, for running back, the only one he has on his bench is Roschon Johnson, and he's got to make a waiver move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll have to make some additions. Sure, he will. I'm sure he's got something cooked up for us.
I'm sure he does, and we'll definitely be talking about that next week. As for that, it's a little bit too early to do any championship check-in or, loser lookout to see who's at the bottom of the barrel. But we can look at some of the major injuries that have happened. So yeah, we'll talk about the Aaron Rodgers injury first, and obviously I'll have it on screen for everybody else. But it didn't look like a lot when it happened, but I immediately said Achilles because I saw what happened with J.K. Dobbins earlier in the day, and I've seen it with a different player. A Patriots cornerback a few years ago, and I said Achilles. That's what it looked like in the slow-mo. It looked like his heel extended back way too far. Clearly that's
so
what
disgusting.
Happens. Yeah, it's a cool one. So shout out to Aaron Rodgers. Thankfully, though, what did happen in that game? Aaron Rodgers had to sacrifice himself so that the George Bush Jets could stop the Josh Alkire air raid offense. So
yeah, it was all part of the script.
It was. They had to win on 9/11. The other two teams lost. The script writers had to give New York a win.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I think the Yankees got rained out or something, and the Mets got clobbered. Yeah. So, that parlay that Al sent was funny. It was 1 for 3.
And it said 360 people took this bet.
Yeah.
Next injury, the major one, Jacoby Myers.
Well, J.K. Dobbins probably a bigger injury than Jacoby.
Well, definitely, but there's no video for that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I looked for a while. There was no video for it. We know that it's Achilles. We know that he's season ending. And honestly, if we want to look and be a little bit outrageous, it could be career ending. You come back off.
I'd agree.
You come back.
He hasn't played a full season.
No.
So yeah, he's had issues. He had, I think it was an ACL. Is that what he came back from?
Yeah.
Looked pretty solid last year, towards the end of last year, and then obviously week 1 this year goes down. And I know now this was a contract year for him. Yep. I can't imagine anyone's going to want to pick him up coming off an Achilles tear.
No shot.
So it's honestly too bad. He was a good player, but
he was a good player, and
I don't think we'll ever see him in fantasy again or in football. We might see him in football, but he won't be. He won't be a star
as good as he was. No.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So now I guess we can move on to the Jacoby Myers injury. It's the second link that I sent you. This one. This one was brutal. I watched it live. I mean, he caught the pass and absolutely just got laid into, and then his hands frozen up in the air above him. I'm as a former Patriots player, I watched Jacoby Myers since he was drafted. Love the guy. I have him on my fantasy team this year. I knew he was going to be a sleeper. Insider knowledge. He dropped 29 points before taking that hit, and he probably would have gotten more as well. He is in the 5-step concussion protocol. There is no update on what step he is currently in. So it could be anywhere from missing this coming week to missing 4 to 5 weeks. We'll really find that out over the next coming days, but I'm hoping that it's just a minor concussion,
Yeah.
despite what it looked like, and that he's back to play here in a few weeks.
Yeah, I imagine most of those situations he's probably back week 3. But like you said, you never know really with the severity of it. And it was a really bad hit,
Yeah.
to be fair. But, you never know, I guess. Kind of just pray he's back for week 3.
Yeah. Were there any other major injuries that happened this week that you can think of?
For fantasy players, no.
Yeah.
There was, the Deontay Johnson thing we kind of touched on. He's going to be, I think, they haven't announced anything official yet, but I think he's going to be out for 6 weeks. Aaron Jones probably missing a couple weeks. And then other than that, just kind of monitoring guys that are coming back, like Mark Andrews, Christian Watson,
George Kittle.
Travis Kelce, George Kittle. No, George Kittle played, but he was kind of bad.
He's banged up. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess Anthony Richardson, but I think he's going to be okay too.
But those were really all the major ones, and then now we can finally address it. And I had it in the intro. You'll see it again now. You can click the last link, and we can watch this Jets play. It was the best play of the week, by my opinion. That's where my vote goes to. It's the punt return in OT to win it.
Mm.
Absolutely incredible. And there was probably a missed tripping call, but who cares at that point in the game? Everybody wanted to go home. The Bills didn't deserve the win. New York had to deal with the anniversary of 9/11. Give it to them.
And they just lost Aaron Rodgers.
Exactly.
Yeah. That was a big win for them. That's a very good play. I was at a Bills bar watching this game last night, and when the room went silent.
Yep.
When this happened, I was just like I guess I was cheering for the Bills, but I was also just couldn't help but laugh a little inside. But yeah, good for the Jets, I suppose. I think I like cheering for them because they were so bad for so long,
Yeah.
I kind of wish them the best. They built it right with just a good defense. They just never have a quarterback. And then of course when they get him, he ends the season on 4 plays.
And worst play of the week, I'm gonna try and pull it up here. And I'll just play it shared on screen. It's the Jacksonville Jaguars versus the Colts. Trevor Lawrence fumbles. Everybody on the Jacksonville Jaguars just forgets that they're playing football and stands up and goes to the sideline. And then the Colts pick it up and fucking run it back for a touchdown. It was horrible.
I think it was Tank Bigsby, the Jacksonville rookie, that picked up the ball. So I think it's maybe just an experience thing where he just kind of assumed the play was over when really it wasn't, just kind of a boneheaded play,
Yeah. All right, here it is. So essentially everybody forgets that they're playing football. Ball's clearly out. That's not a forward pass. Tank Bigsby picks it up, drops it. And then DeForest Buckner heads up play, gritty, reaches for the goal line. Unfortunately, the Colts lost the game anyway, so it didn't really matter, but it definitely put the pressure on Jacksonville, and that gets my vote for worst play of the week.
I agree. That was a bad one. I'm trying to think of another one that was bad, but
there was the Washington Commanders play versus the Cardinals where Sam Howell just got the ball ripped away from him, and then the Cardinals ran it into the end zone for a touchdown.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
There was also
you just go any play from Joe Burrow this week probably would work too.
Also, the 3 interceptions from Josh Allen. You'll see it in the intro. It's tough, but I think
he threw more receptions to Whitehead on the Jets than he did to Gabe Davis, which is kind of sad to think about.
That's a bad sign for Gabe Davis fantasy owners.
Oh, it's terrible. Pretty funny. He was just absolutely awful.
But yeah, I think that about does it for our week 1. This will be coming out ideally Wednesday. So glad to have you here, Kevin. Next week there may be a surprise guest. Who knows? Yeah.
If anyone wants to join, let us know. We're definitely open to the option of doing it. Otherwise, we're always happy to 2-man it, especially if you guys like the content. They should be shorter from now on as well. This one was long. And I don't know if I can afford an hour every week, but
no, it was a bit too much. We had some technical difficulties to start. We had to address all the rosters. This would have
learning curve week 1
into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, should we get going forward? If you guys are down for a 20 to 30 minute pod, let us know, and we'll get you included.
Yeah. All right, Kev. Thanks for joining. Good luck everybody this week. Happy to see.
Yeah, best of
play
luck.
that.
Good luck to you with the waivers tonight. I hope you get anyone that you want.
Good luck to you too.
I need some guys.
I'm
So
targeting some guys.
as am I. We'll see how it comes out tomorrow morning.
All right. I'll see you, bud.
All right.
Peace.
Goodbye.